Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. This is Collector Conversations. Oftentimes, watch collectors are told they have to choose between building out a collection of mainstream horological choices or connoisseurs' niche pieces. But why choose? Today, we have a collector who brings them both together. Archie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tim. Happy to be here.
Where did this start? Were you always a fan of watches as a kid, or was it something that developed as an adult?
Actually, it's a little way back. In high school, I have my dad to thank for gifting me with my first Swiss watch. So it's an Omega de Ville. It's in steel, it's in quartz. And then in college, he gifted me with a tag link. It's a two-tone link. But my love affair with mechanical watches started around 2015. So it was this time when I picked up my first mechanical timepiece. It was Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Ultra Thin 41.
Do you still have those original school watches, your graduation pieces?
Yes, they're still there.
So now, moving on through the years, you quickly jumped up to high horology with JLC, and we have some of that on the table today, but you have a really broad theme to the point where I'm struggling to determine the theme. Is it just stuff you like, or is it something else that I haven't sensed?
Yes, okay, so for today, I brought like two sets of watches to kind of characterize this point of my journey. So early on, I've really gravitated towards the iconic references. So that's what you'll see here. Like we have the Navitimer, the Reverso, the Portugieser, and the other half of what I brought today are Code 1159s. Something that, are a little not too mainstream. And I think that's where I am right now. Like, I love the Royal Oaks from AP, but since late last year, I've started taking an interest on the Code series, and so now we're here.
Well, before we jump into the codes, and by the way, this is the only time short of an AP boutique I've seen 4 of them together, but I want to talk to you about your initial encounters with AP, because you are wearing the Royal Oak Music Edition, and you said that you did start with the Royal Oak when you got into AP. Take me through that journey.
Yes, so I started with AP sometime 2016. So my first piece was 15400 with a white dial. And that time, you can still get them at retail. So
that recently, eh?
Yes. So it feels like really, really way back in the past.
Now, when you got into the Royal Oak, did you go straight for, iconic pieces? Did you have a knack for complications? Because you're wearing a Royal Oak, but it's about as offbeat a Royal Oak as we've ever seen.
Yes, actually, I picked up this particular music edition because I'm watching Coachella, and I feel like this is an appropriate timepiece for the occasion.
And it's interesting you mention that, because they're having a huge metal fest in the fall out in the Coachella Valley, and I'm now deciding whether to sell a kidney to attend that. So thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
What other Royal Oaks have you collected over the years?
So I have the RD2. It's a perpetual calendar in titanium and platinum. I also have a 15500 in steel and in red gold, and so there's a bit.
So you got a little bit of variety there. And now, when you decided that you wanted to stick with AP, but you wanted to diversify, I want to know, back in 2019, were you on board with the Code 1159 immediately, or like a lot of us, did you warm up to it over time?
To be honest, I wasn't a fan when it was first introduced, so I share the opinion of most people who looked at it. But over time, especially it started with a tourbillon. So I first encountered it in September of last year, and I immediately called up the boutique in Geneva and asked if they can put me on the list. So I feel like the onyx dial, the rose gold hands just work really well.
And it's interesting because there's a lot of different tones going on. Full credit for the strap, by the way. I know you went away from the factory strap and it looks tremendous.
Yes.
So you've got here, you've got a ceramic center case. You've got a heavily rhodiumed white gold that looks almost like platinum. You've got the onyx dial in black, and then the rose gold accents, and that's before we get to the flying tourbillon. Were you attracted to any one element, or was it just the totality of it that pulled you in?
It's more of the totality of it, and I feel like it's very wearable. You know, I love going to work in brown shoes. You know, so I swapped out the strap. So yeah, it looks just really great, and it's also my first piece with a ceramic case.
And it's a very fascinating watch, because if you just look at it from the front, you're like, okay, I get it, round case, straight lugs. But then you start to turn, you're like, oh my gosh, it's got buttress-like lug profiles, there's faceting, there's contrasting finish. God is really in the details with this watch.
Yes, I think that goes for all codes, and for me, it really represents like the future of AP. While the royal oak will always be there, I feel that this allows AP to be a little more creative, you know. So if you look at the Universal, for example, it's a proof of concept. There are a lot of things that AP can do with the Code 1159 that it can't do with the Royal Oak.
That's true. You're absolutely right there, and it's fascinating to see how it's evolved, because now there are gradient dials, there are guilloche dials, different colors, but where a lot of that came from was in the first year, there were a lot of negative reactions to the automatic and the chronograph for their solid dials, but everyone loved this watch right out of the gate. Do you feel AP got this one right, like from the beginning? Because this was the first code I really loved.
Yes, and I think the only tweak that they did since it was released, right, is the change in the stock strap. So it's now like a rubber leather strap, and I think that best shows how these timepieces are positioned. You know, it's not a dress watch, it's not a sports watch, it's something in the middle.
No, I would agree with you there, because it is thin. It's thinner than people think, but it is broad. It does have a lot of presence. There are some elements that are pulled from the Royal Oaks, like the octagonal mid-case. It's not the kind of thing you need to wear a tuxedo to put on. The aventurine dial, is that what you fell in love with? Because I know this is what I fell in love with.
The aventurine dial with a rose gold case.
It's an absolute monster, and you know it's funny because the jumbo no longer comes with the 2120 base, but the 5134 it actually is.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a nod to the
lovely history of JLC and Audemars Piguet. Which one gets the most wrist time? Because I'm dying to know, if you have 4 codes, which one do you grace with the most wrist time?
It really would have to be the tourbillon. It doesn't need a lot of setting, you know.
No, that's true.
For obvious reasons, right? And you know, I really just love having it on the wrist, so I bring it anywhere.
We'll jump back in the codes in a second, but I want to ask you philosophically, because this is a perpetual calendar, and a lot of people ask me, Tim, do I put my perpetual on a winder full time, or do I just wind it and reset it when I want to wear it? How do you approach owning a perpetual with relatively short power reserve?
Yes, for me, I really never had a problem with setting perpetuals, you know. So it's just a little tricky the first time, you know, like which buttons control which function. But once you try it the first time, it should be fine.
Okay, so see, don't be afraid of letting your perpetual calendar stop. That's the lesson there. And I've never met a watch winder and a watchmaker that got along together, so it's probably for the best for the watches as well. Now, we have a two-tone here, but unusual two-tones, ceramic and white gold and rose. Moving into the chronograph now, we have this incredible metallic sunburst dial with rose gold accents. This chrono really is state-of-the-art, but aesthetically, did you need to see the new dials before you jumped into a code chrono?
Actually, no, but what I really liked about this is I sourced it from a friend. He got it brand new, and he offered it to me under retail. So the value proposition is just, you know, a little too much for me to say no to.
Yeah, of course.
And when I saw it in the metal, you know, it's really much nicer. I don't know what's wrong with the AP website, but there are some codes there that, you know, are not as attractive as you are in the metal. So I really would invite everyone to see it in the metal before making any judgments.
No, and I agree with you there too. I would also say we're dispelling all sorts of myths today, because they say don't buy watches from family or friends, but apparently this one was from a friend. Is he still your friend?
Yeah, it still is.
Fair enough. This is an awesome piece, and again, first year, a lot of folks looked at the white, black, and blue solid lacquer dials on these Code chronos and automatics, and they're like, I'm just not feeling it. But as the dials began to evolve, people started changing their opinion, and I think nowhere is that more obvious and more apparent than in this year's steel cases and guilloche dials. Did you know immediately? Was it love at first sight?
It was. And this piece I encountered the first time in February. So we were invited to an AP event in Geneva, and the novelties were presented to us. And when I saw this, I immediately, had my name on the queue.
And it is great because this is a 2023 model, and it really does show exactly what you talked about before, that this is a watch with a large range. Yes, it's technically the AP dress watch, but being steel, being rugged, being an everyday wearable automatic with the same base caliber as an offshore, it really does seem like something that you could wear every day. This is not a Calatrava.
Yes, and another thing about the codes, I think it opens up AP to a lot more people. Like if you visit, I was in Athens a couple of weeks ago, and I was surprised. Like you can purchase going in, going in the door, through the door. You can purchase a code right there and then.
That's at an AP boutique.
That's an AP boutique in Athens. You can buy it at retail.
Well, so there's your opportunity right there. If you wanted to get into AP, the Code 1159 is a fascinating opportunity, but also I'll say this. Look, I think everyone who was alive in the 70s and 80s wished he bought like 2 manual wind Daytonas back in the day. So someday when we're talking about the auction watches of like 2065, we'll be talking about Archie's Code collection. Now, classical watches, we did mention Calatravas a second ago offhand. You do have some traditional dress watches that you believe represent iconic pieces for their manufacturers. Let's talk about the Portugieser.
Yes, so this Portugieser, I found at the local AD in Lausanne. And I got it to commemorate my move to Switzerland in June of last year. So
from Manila.
From Manila, yes. And I just love the size. I love the heat blued hands, the power reserve, the dial.
It's an interesting piece because the Portugieser, people don't realize how few of them were made between the late 30s and the early 90s. It really only came back in the 90s as a watch that IWC built in series. And this one has a lot of unusual things. It's got the limited edition of 250. Yes. It's got the 12-step hand lacquered dial, the blued hands you mentioned, and an 8-day manual wind caliber. How do you feel about manual wind watches? Do you have a split between autos and manuals, or do you favor one?
Yeah, I think it's a nice even split. I don't really I don't have a preference when it comes to manual or automatics, but I love the automatic, the manually wound pieces in the collection. This one, for example, I think most people have the issue of people here is with the size.
Yes.
It's 43, so like, how can that be a dress watch if it's 43 in size, right? But for me, it was made to be big. It should wear big, so I think that's fine.
Yeah, I remember there was this thread below a Portugieser article on Hodinkee a while back, and someone's like, if only it were available in 38 millimeters, and the next guy's like, are you crazy? It's a Portuguese. Does everything have to be the size of a quarter?
True.
But how do you come across with a large watch on your wrist? Because we were just talking about how we have the same wrist size. So how do you rock both a 37 millimeter Royal Oak and 43 millimeter Portugiesers?
I think it's all about not really minding what people say. So if you're comfortable with what's on your wrist, that should be fine. You should be happy. You should wear what you like. Even
when maybe it's a little bit big. If big is the look, it's cool. It's like Panerai.
Yeah. So I have a 44 millimeter and a 45 millimeter Panerai in the collection, so that's fine.
You see, you can break all of the rules, and you don't have to be AP to do it. There you go, IWC, breaking the rules. And I would say Chopard does the same thing, because also a 43 millimeter rose gold case, your Lunar one, really special piece, very limited edition. Are you a Chopard collector generally, or did this just strike you like lightning?
No, this is my first Chopard in the collection. And it was by chance, really. Like I walked in the local Bucharest store in Lausanne, and then they had like this exhibit of pieces that they're offering to the clients. And I saw it there, and I told the sales associate who's always assisted me to, keep it, and I'll get it the next day.
And it's double certification. It's Geneva Hallmark
Geneva and
COSC.
COSC. Correct.
So I guess you got the COSC for the head and then the Geneva seal for the heart.
Yes, so best of both worlds.
Now, the orbital moon phase, it's a very dynamic take on a very static complication. Just talk me through like how you discovered this watch and what you love about it, because there's a lot going on beyond the moon phase.
Yes, so for me, I have always been a fan of the big date, and but the clincher is the shade of blue on the dial. Like if you look at that, it'll be hard. It will be tough to find another timepiece with this shade of blue.
And it's got a really warm contrast between that shade of blue and the rose gold garnishings of the hands and the numerals.
Yes, and after the certification you mentioned earlier, the beauty of the movement, that's just a bonus. It's really about the dial, and I feel like every time I wear it, everything just works and it's all just well put together.
Philosophically, I see something very consistent here. Everything is horlogerie. Everything is very high-end, impressive manufacturers, fine finish. Do you have like a Seiko 5 or like a Zinn EZM in the collection? Something that you can really just beat on when you want to?
I am actually a big Seiko collector. So I have 62 mass re-editions. I have some Seiko 5s in the collection. I have Alpinists. So yeah, I don't discriminate.
And it seems like you don't travel light, because you're here you're visiting Philadelphia, and you've got this entire collection within a collection that you brought on for the show today. Do you often travel with watches?
I will usually travel with 3 watches at most, but if it's Tim inviting you to the mothership, you bring a few. So.
Now, this is a topic that's really on everyone's mind now, traveling with watches to places you don't know. There are questions about security. Do you ever do anything like, maybe take your initial venture out of the hotel with a swatch, or wear the watch on your ankle, or research ahead before traveling with an expensive watch?
That's a good question. Actually, what I do is especially when I go around Europe, right? The reports of what happens in London, Paris. So what I do when I travel to these cities, I go with my Seikos.
Okay.
So that's worked for me.
Now I've done something very similar. I have my Swatch System 51, and no matter what happens, I'm fine. Although on occasion, I have to admit, I have worn the watch around the ankle in unfamiliar neighborhoods.
That I haven't tried yet.
But that's very good, and that's good because people are going to want to know about that. I think everyone's got questions about traveling with watches today. The good news is, though, here in Philadelphia, you can still pretty much do what you like. I never had a problem carrying $500,000 worth of watches in a bag from this place to the other place every day for 3 years. So fingers crossed.
And Tim, on that point, that's also, I think, the beauty of Switzerland. You can go around Geneva, Zurich, Lausanne, any timepiece on your wrist, and that's fine.
Yeah, pretty much. Geneva, Zurich, Lausanne, Dubai, Hong Kong, Singapore, you're good to walk around with a watch.
Yes.
But in the United States, welcome to the jungle, for the most part. So now, do you have rules about collecting? Like, do you have a one watch in, one watch out type of philosophy? Is there a maximum number? How do you know when to sell a watch?
Yes. So I have I have to answer 2 questions before I get to let go of a watch. Number 1, does it still get the wrist time it deserves? And number 2, if you decide down the road to want it back, is it possible to repurchase it? So if I'm comfortable with the answers to both, I can sell.
I appreciate that, and I think that's a good way to look at it, because I often make purchase decisions based on whether or not I think I will be able to buy a watch in the future. It's the same way I approach cars. I might say, look, I'm considering 3 cars, but if one of them triples in price, am I ever going to be able to get back into that market? And it's the same way with watches. If this thing becomes a sensation, will I have missed my window?
Yeah, it's the fear of missing out, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree with that. What's the weirdest watch you ever bought?
Weirdest, I think this has the funkiest dial, but I've really gravitated towards the more mainstream watch. So I wouldn't call anything weird in my collection. So.
Okay, well, in its day, the Reverso was a weird watch. It had two sides, a rotating case, an Art Deco look, and a shape movement. So why don't we talk about a watch that was, at one point in history, weird before it was iconic. This is your Grand Reverso 1931 chocolate dial. How did you come across this?
Okay, so this one, it's also a recent addition to the collection. I saw it at the local AD, and I was immediately, I was surprised seeing it sitting at the AD because I know that it's from 2014. And when I was just starting collecting, I've actually seen this piece, for sale sometime 2015 thereabouts. And then during that time, I did not have the means to purchase a rose gold piece. So imagine the surprise, seeing it, seeing it brand new. It did not have the stock Casa Fagliano strap on it when it was sold to me by the AD, but I've reached out to Herman of Casa Fagliano, and they'll do the stock strap for me.
And it's the real thing. This is not like the Fagliano collection by, for Jaeger-LeCoultre. This is a real Fagliano strap.
Yes, it is.
We were just talking about like watch theft. I can imagine somewhere someone's putting out a contract for like a theft. He's like, you can keep the watch, but the strap is mine. I just want the strap.
So it's really different from the one that's readily available at the ADs and boutiques. So guys, if you have a Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso, I suggest exploring the Casa Fagliano options because it's really different.
And you reached out directly to the brothers too, because a lot of people, they try to go through Richemont or Jaeger-LeCoultre and they wait months or years.
Yes, actually, you can just email them, and then they'll arrange for everything, and they can send it anywhere in the world. This one, this particular strap, I ordered when I was still in Manila, and they sent it all the way from Hurlingham.
Now, keeping it in the Richemont family, let's talk about your Vacheron Patrimony. This is the 81180, a real fascinating watch. You were talking about the warmth of the dial and how you picked this variant on that basis.
Yes, so actually this reference is still available, but the newer ones come with like a much whiter dial. And this one I found in a new old stock condition in Milan. And that's why I picked it up.
I guess every collection needs a very traditional two-hand dress watch, and this is yours.
Yes, and I first encountered this reference again in 2015 when I was just starting. And for me, this is what introduced me to Vacheron.
Now, it's good you mention that because a lot of people who go out and they buy their first Vacheron or their only Vacheron, it's going to be an overseas. They don't even consider the dress watches. It's interesting to me that you did the opposite.
Yes, don't get me wrong. No, I love the overseas line. I have a few overseas pieces in the collection, but this one is really close to my heart.
Oh, without a doubt. Now, it's interesting because I am beginning to pick up a theme here, and with only one real exception, we've got a lot of rose gold emerging. We have rose gold bimetallic, we have rose gold dial accents, full rose gold cases. And initially, I was about to say we don't have a sports watch on this table, but we do have a sports watch, and it's also in rose gold.
Yes.
Are you a pilot's watch fan, or did you just fall in love with the details of the Breitling 806 1959 re-edition?
Yes, this one, again, I saw at the local AD. I was surprised again because I understand it's been released a couple of years ago, but this one is new. And I love the plexiglass crystal. I love they also offer this in steel and in platinum, but this rose gold version for me is has the best dial color combination. If you look at the white subdials and the black dial.
Especially if you take a little bit of Fotina and rose gold hands and combine that with a rose gold case, it seems really organic, like these things were intended to be together.
Yes, and I swapped the stock strap. It came with this brown vintage leather strap, but I think the black croc strap works.
Yeah, you beat me to it. I was going to ask about the strap. It works well, but I don't remember this being the original.
Yes.
So do you believe new strap, new watch? Are you a frequent strap swapper?
I am. So I have all the tools. I have a lot of straps in the collection. And after I got this, they invited me to visit the Breitling factory, and they also invited me to fly a light aircraft above the Swiss Alps.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So did you do it wearing this watch?
Yes.
Oh, Well, there you go.
And they also they allowed me to fly the plane while we were over the Alps, so it was a great experience.
And I assume that's not how you got here to Philadelphia?
No. I wish.
Now, a lot of folks get very nervous when it comes to starting with strap swapping, especially with a gold watch or a platinum watch. How did you start? Was it with Seiko with strap swapping?
Yes, of course. Yes, I think as with most people, you get to be a little more comfortable the longer you do it, But with the right tools and with some care, you just don't go around, being all careless. But if you put in a little caution in doing it, that should be fine.
Because for all of these watches that have had straps swapped out and the precious metal cases, I don't see a single mark. You wear your watches, but you wear them carefully.
Yes, I do wear them. It's just that I think it's more of not me. It's not me not wearing them, but it's more of I think there's a big rotation, so they don't really get scruffed as much.
Now, do you have future goals as a collector? Because I know some people, they just lead with their heart and they look back at the watches they bought and they're like, look, this is just a profile of what I loved over time. Do you have a roadmap or an intention or goals as a collector that gives you some sort of direction?
Yeah, I do. So now I'm actually waiting for 2 pieces, and I'm hoping that after that, I can take a sabbatical from collecting.
Sure.
So
I believe that.
So I'm waiting for the Reverso tourbillon. It was released at Watches and Wonders.
Yes.
So I was invited by L.U.C to view the novelties, and it is the one that spoke to me the most. I feel that this is the first time that L.U.C was able to make a tourbillon in a Reverso that is also very wearable, very thin. So I'm hoping, I was told it should be delivered sometime August this year. And after that, I'm also expecting delivery of a Kodo, a Grand Seiko Kodo. I was told it should be delivered sometime December of this year. So
you mentioned that you got a specific serial number. Is that a lucky number?
No. They actually asked me when we were in discussions about getting an allocation for it. If I have a number preference, and I told them whichever number is fine, so long as it gets me an allocation. So yeah.
Okay. One thing I don't really see here, although arguably AP and Chopard are independent, they're billion-dollar independent brands, I don't see any FP Journe, any Moser, Voutilanen. Have you not started in that direction, or does it just not interest you?
Yes, I actually I love independence. I'm in the Philippines. There's this group of independent watch collectors, and they've added me to their chat group, so I got to see them. And but for me, I feel like it's a rabbit hole. Like if I start looking to Journe or Voutilanen, I would like have to have a trio. It can't just be one. So that's been my approach in collecting. So I think that going into the independent rabbit hole would be a little more expensive.
For a man who has 4 Code 1159s, I've got to say that sounds like a very accurate self-assessment. Spot on.
So I know myself.
But window shopping, would you be interested in something like a Journe? Would you be interested in a less mainstream independent? What's caught your eye? Are there watchmakers that really interest you in the independent scene?
In the independent scene, probably Journe, if I would ever go into independence. But other than that, in Watches and Wonders, I was able to see some Laurent Ferriers. Also very interesting. But some of their recent offerings were a little too big for me. So maybe down the road. And the other thing that puts me off a bit is the very long wait times.
Yes.
Maybe if I caught the independent bug a few years back, it would have been more manageable. But now it's like, okay, you're sure to get an allocation, but with like 2 years, 3 years, depending on the manufacturer.
And that's absolutely a valid objection to the whole independent scene. It is very challenging to get fired up about something, spend a huge amount of money, and then sit and wait 12, 24, 36 months.
And the patience is not really, my best virtue.
Again, for a man who owns 4 Code 1159s, I believe you. But you do like vintage styles, because you've got the Portugieser, you've got the Reverso 1931, you've got the 1959 806 Navitimer. Have you ever had any ambitions to get into true vintage?
Yes, I actually kind of dabbled in vintage Rolex pieces. But again, for the same reason, I feel like if I get 5513, for example, I need to get a Daytona and a GMT Master.
The rabbit hole?
From the same era. So that's what has put me off.
Do you have like a Grail watch, like an exit watch? Like if I owned that, that would be the end I could die happy type watch?
I think it's really the Kodo for me. Because when it was released last year, I've actually sought it out already when it was released. So I asked the boutique, for example, in Paris, if they can secure an allocation for me, and they said they can't because it's all out. And serendipitously, just watches and wonders. I was invited to the Grand Seiko booth, and then they were presenting the novelties. And then out of the blue, I just asked the guys there, like, "Can you get me a Kodo?" And they're like, "If you're serious, I think we still have one remaining allocation for Europe." So apparently, the Kodos are allocated based on the region you're from. And then I said, "Okay, so let's see if you can get me the allocation. Let's do it." And then they had my application vetted by their HQ in Japan, and then a week after they confirmed it, and there. So now I'm waiting for the delivery.
That's a cool insight into the process of buying like the ultimate Grand Seiko mechanical watch. You said that there was a delivery experience that's planned as well. Tell me about that.
Yes. So I'm getting it from the London boutique, and so they'll let me know once that happens, and they're also arranging for a visit in Ginza.
To actually head to Japan.
Yes, and I understand it's to meet the watchmakers.
Who are behind the
Kodo.
Kodo.
Who are behind the Kodo, yes.
That's amazing. So you've got your exit watch on the way. Well, I hope it's more of a exit watch than a true exit watch.
True exit watch. I'm hoping, we can all hope, right? So I'm hoping it's a true exit watch. And on that point, right, visiting Japan is something I'm looking forward to. But that is also one of the plus sides, I guess, to being based in Switzerland. In that I've been able to visit the Breitling factory, the VC factory, the JLC factory. I have a visit scheduled for the IWC factory sometime September. I was able to visit the AP Museum, and they have a small watchmaking studio there as well. So so I'm making the most of my stay.
So if you do buy from any one of these brands, be sure to ask about a factory visit if you're in the neighborhood.
Yeah. So the boutiques can arrange for you, the ADs can arrange for you. So,
Archie, thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
Thanks so much, Tim.